Hey, welcome in. Yes, you still here? Turn down your volume, adjust your sets. We are live. It is the Cinema 9 podcast, and it's a crossover episode. It's a special opportunity for us to connect with two guys that you will get to be very familiar with if you're not already in a moment. Travis Roy, Eric Bradshaw, Michael Govier, Cinema 9 podcast, Cinema 9 pod, protonmail.com, Cinema 9, all your favorite social medias, 5-star review, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, such and so forth. Today's movie is Contact. We're going to focus on that in the later part of the show. Does it hold up or not? Selected by today's guest. And these are two guys who, they know each other pretty well. I will say that. I think that's a fair assessment. And they love movies, though. Their natural passion and infectious spirit for movies, very kindred spirits to us in a sense. And, I'll turn it over to Eric here because, Eric, you're the one who made the connection. So why don't you introduce these guys better than I ever could?
Well, I stumbled upon them just kind of by accident, and I just really like their energy. Like, they are identical twin brothers, obviously. I'm not going to pretend like I know which one is who right now based on these clothes. Maybe I can make a judgment based on what poster they have behind them. Like, James, are you the Batman and IMAX fan?
Yeah, that's correct.
You're right.
Yeah. Okay, all right. Well, I got it there. But yeah, these guys have a really fun show. They put it out on YouTube. They're on Apple. They're at Spotify, everywhere. And they put out so much content that your head will spin. So once you kind of get to know these guys as hosts and like their sense of humor and what they like and what they're into, it's just really infectious. So I just started watching all their stuff, and I was lucky enough to invite them on and have them respond favorably. But yeah, they started giving out tickets. Like, you guys gave away like fucking Jaws passes, and like you're starting to get into promotional stuff that I'm sure your other listeners out in Cali are just crazy about. But yeah, great content, just excellent new voices to the scene, and I'm just glad they're on.
And they are called.
Have you said the name yet?
Who are these guys? Just random twins.
Now guess what podcast they're from, listeners.
No, Raiders of the Lost podcast. This is Anthony and James Deveney. And
yeah, you're close.
Deveney. Their show is Raiders Lost podcast. So get on it immediately because their stuff is incredible and their content is very prolific.
Thanks for having us, fellas.
Welcome to the show, guys.
Happy to be here. Yeah, thanks for the invite. It's so nice to be here. Thanks for the kind words. And Raiders Lost podcast. You can find us everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Everything up there: Spotify, Apple Podcasts,
video,
TikTok. We're all over the place. We've been very fortunate the last year and a half and finding the success and the audience we've had. So we're always happy to collab with other podcasts like you guys. So we're happy to be here. Yeah, it's a really interesting to have a show is talking about films, and there are so many nowadays, and we love. There's like a community of people who discuss film online for jobs, and it's pretty amazing to connect with all these other film lovers and get conversations going about movies and TVs.
Absolutely. Awesome. It's beautiful. Very exciting. Travis, you want to talk now?
Oh, I like to talk too. That's why I'm on a podcast. No, yeah, honestly, it's just great to have you guys, and we definitely really appreciate you coming on, and it's good to meet you guys. So are we getting into the next bit?
No. I just wanted you to say something.
You want to talk about society? You want to talk about society for a little while?
I'll talk about society for an hour and a half, but
we already made these guys wait for an hour for us because of a timeline. let's not drag their night out anymore.
Mistakes were made.
Society, man. We're living in society.
Right now, Chudpud is so happy. You just made Chudpud's night. I will tell you this, guys. You guys are cool. You could be dicks if you wanted to, but you're deciding not to.
Well, they said they don't usually record live, so maybe we'll find out. We're gonna get the spicy side tonight.
Right. People. That's what I just want people out there to know, and it's not like we have a massive audience, but the people who do connect with us and enjoy our show, and those who enjoy your show, know that these guys are authentically being open and honest and cool about collaborating, because United States is founded on hyper-competitiveness, and capitalism is like divide and conquer. We want ours, and let's set the tone early. But I think you guys have really given me a sense of optimism today. So I just want to thank you guys for being cool, because you got 25,000 subs on YouTube. That's a really nice number. That's impressive.
It is.
It's tough. Yeah, I mean, dude, we got 330. It's really hard. We've been trying to do that for a while.
It's hard, yeah. YouTube's tough. We just started popping for real like a couple of weeks ago, and it took 2 years to get to that point. But I mean, in terms of like wanting to work with other collaborators and in podcasts, we've mentored so many people to start a podcast and a movie podcast. That's so like we're open to like, yeah, competition's cool, but the best way for all podcasts to grow is to have more competition and more shows. So we've helped people make movie podcasts, and it's like, oh, you're our competition, like a very Daniel Plainview look at it. We're more of like, let's have a fun community. We'll grow movie knowledge and keep film alive, because this is the game of keeping cinema alive and film alive and great movies alive, especially something like Contact that most people that are under 20 years old probably have never heard of. So I think it's just grow the community bigger. That's where everyone finds success.
100%.
Beautiful. Okay.
Oh, there he is.
You are my competitor.
It's not like
no one else to podcast.
That's not a bad title. That's also your guys' title.
I would eat you.
Your title is really good too. It's anybody who could incorporate a movie title into their podcast title, but it's also a fun movie that, you know, immediately Raiders of the Lost podcast sparks a lot of excitement. So good call on that part. And I want to thank you guys for being here and doing that. So that's it. I'll stop hobnobbing or schmoozing, or whatever they call it. Let's get into it. It's time for Quarantine Viewing Picks. We started Quarantine Viewing Picks because the show started during the pandemic back in April 2020. Right. And, yeah, it's still just the title, but hopefully you've outliving your life a little bit more, and everybody's getting to watch movies in the theater way more than they did during the pandemic. So, Travis Roy, what's going on this week with you?
Well, I watched some movies like I'm prone to do. I checked out the new Day Shift from Jamie Foxx on Netflix. It's exactly what you'd expect. Anybody else seen this one yet?
I've seen 30 minutes of it.
I respect your respect for your own time. I watched it late at night, and like it was okay. It did like what I expected it to do, but like I'm never gonna watch it again.
Oh man.
Yeah, it was one of those. I've been on this Jack Nicholson kick, and so I checked out The Shooting from 1966. It's like an hour and 15 minutes long. Jack shows up like 40 minutes in. There's a lot of close up of his eyeballs and that kind of stuff. You know, it's definitely worth seeing. It almost feels like an episode of television. Like it's very, I don't know, but it's if you're into the Jack Nicholson checking them all off your box thing, you know, it's one that's worth. Well, you're going to see them all eventually. So I guess if you're doing that, I had liked the first animated Addams Family movie. The second one, I suggest that this October season you don't spend your time with that one. It's just utterly forgettable.
Really?
Well, did you see the first one, Michael? Did you like it?
I actually saw the first one at a drive-in.
Wow. Look at you. And you liked it?
I thought it was enjoyable. I like my Addams Family fare. I'm into it.
That's how I felt about it. So I went in on the second one, and it was just, I don't know. It was just lacking. I don't know. There was no spirit to it. It wasn't into it.
There's a new, real quickly, there's a new TV show coming out Wednesday.
Yes.
Solid.
Yeah.
That looks solid.
We should pitch that for Tim.
Looks good. It looks good.
Yeah, I think I'm into that
Jenna
too.
Ortega's a very talented actor.
Yeah, I did like her.
Ooh, what do I know her from anything?
She was in the most recent Scream. She played the
The
daughter,
opening girl,
of
the opening sequence, and then
she played the younger sister of the lead character. She was the only great. We watched that movie. We walked out, and I was like, that actress is the only good actor in that entire movie. I was like, she's the only one who can act.
Yeah, I'm excited about Luis Guzman coming back. He's kind of been away from things for a while, so I'm most excited for him, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
You guys ever see that movie 3,000 Miles to Graceland?
No.
I never did because I thought it looked terrible, so I watched it. And it's terrible.
It's so bad.
Definitely seen that,
dude. Yeah. The opening sequence of it's like you think, hey, it's all this Elvis stuff. Surely I'll hear some Elvis in this movie. It's like nothing but new metal, and in the opening sequence is like two super CGI scorpions like duking it out in the middle of the desert. Yeah. It is the most 2001 thing I've ever seen in my life. It is like watching Puddle of Mud if it was a movie.
Great band.
That is a great description. It's very of its time. Yeah, it's very adrenaline, like macho male action, ridiculous. Very Michael Bay-ish stuff going on in it. It's terrible. Yeah.
It was just excrement. The Djinn from 2021. It was like, boy trapped in an apartment with a scary monster kind of situation. You need a good child actor if you're going to make your whole horror movie about child. And this one did well. The kid does a really good job. The script is a little iffy, but it was, and there's certainly like, it's based on jinn, right? That's like from Arabic lore, like Quranic lore, and they're like breaking out this book that's like clearly like been printed up on a Xerox machine, and it's like all in English and shit to read through it. I'm like, okay, I guess I'm gonna have to suspend the old disbelief here. The big one for the week was The Black Phone. I'm not gonna say too much about it, but there's a lot of people that have seen it, a lot of people that like it, and I'm among them. There are people that make movies and TV shows such as Stranger Things that, are influenced by Stephen King. And then there's Joe Hill, who was literally raised by Stephen King. But yeah, you can really feel the King influence there without it. But it also still feels like its own thing. It's
very good movie. Yeah.
Yeah, it's very good. And those are the movies I watched.
The movies that he watched. By the way, Harsh Truth is in here. Live comments. Hello, my friends in film fandom.
Harsh Truth, welcome.
Hello. How you doing?
That felt like
we're from Boston.
Really.
How you doing?
Well, that makes no sense then. Yeah. What do we say in Michigan? Hey, how's it going?
How are you today?
Hello there.
How are you? That's what we said.
All right, Eric Bresham, you're up next. What you been watching? What do you want to recommend?
Dude, I watched a bunch of heavy hitters this week, so I got some big movies to blow through. X, the new Ty West film. I finally got around to it. Dude, I've been a fan of Ty West since The Roost, like 20 years ago. X was fucking awesome. I loved it. Like, solid slasher, like, little goofy. Like, the first hour is literally just like him, like, hey, remember the 70s? But then, like, after that, like, I fucking loved all of it. I thought it was fantastic. Men. I finally got around to Alex Garland's Men. I've been waiting because I've heard some like weird mixed word of mouth. I dug the film. I dug it. It's like very metaphorical. So if you can't handle like A24's like up its own ass metaphorical symbolism shit, might not be for you. But I thought it was solid. I'd love Jesse Buckley. I'd watch you do laundry for 2 hours. Prey. I'm with you, Travis. Prey is solid.
So Eric was texting me while he was watching Prey, and there's like all these jokes coming, like, "Ooh, am I watching the Lion King remake?" and this kind of shit. And then the jokes stopped coming. I'm like, hey,
the jokes stopped coming.
He likes it.
When I stopped texting, I was like, all right, this is actually good.
Yeah,
this is actually really fucking good.
Yeah.
I'm excited. It's no Predator 2, but it's fucking good.
No Predator 2. Want some candy?
Dude, I don't want to be that guy here, but Lightyear, I turned it off. I was fucking bored. It was just so dull. And there's no fucking way Andy saw this in 1995. There's no way they made this in 1995. I guess.
It was much an adventure. Yeah,
dude, I was scratching my head. I was like, what? Why? Like, it would have made a really cool, like, short, like before another movie, like a fun action sci-fi, like an hour and 45 minutes. I was like, oh, dude, I'm out.
As I understand it, it's a whole new crop of Pixar filmmakers. It's like the next generation that has like the control now, and they didn't steer the ship in the right direction.
That's right. I mean, Lasseter is a total scumbag, but he has
the
magic touch. And lastly, Elvis. I finally watched it. I had to buy it. I couldn't wait any longer. I'm a huge Elvis fan, as you know. And I've seen every single Elvis biopic that's ever been made. And it's tough to beat John Carpenter's 1979 with Kurt Russell. Impossible, in my opinion. That's still the best. But I really liked Baz Luhrmann's Elvis. Austin Butler was fucking out of control. He was so good. Tom Hanks, I was like, what is this goofy Rick Baker costume? Just like hire an old fat guy. What is this Rick Baker costume shit? Just hire an old fat guy. He's so good in it.
And he has way too much screen time, though. I think Austin Butler should have been 70-30 to Tom Hanks. It was his perspective too, which is kind of weird for the whole film.
It was an interesting, like I said, like I've seen so many that are just the straight paint by number David Copperfield from Birth to Death. So I kind of welcomed like a third person perspective on it. Like, how is this person perceived through like someone else's eyes? And it actually, for me, came off like a really good, like business entertainment movie, like if that makes sense, because rarely biopics, they don't really get into the business that much. I have like the one scene where like the record producer's like fucking get a hit, but like the whole movie is business politics, and just a different take on and everything. I thought it was fantastic. Yeah, and that's it, man. That's it for me.
Austin Butler, I think, is the front runner for best
Incredible.
actor. He's so
Incredible.
good. He's amazing.
I didn't know all that stuff about the Colonel, so I was so fascinated by like that business side of it.
And what's even more impressive is Austin Butler did all of his own singing, except for a
Unbelievable.
couple of last numbers. They had an older singer and meshed their voices together, but 90% of the vocals were all Austin Butler.
Wow.
I got control. Control, so awesome.
Real quickly, have Raiders of the Lost podcast people. I'm just going to call you that, both of you.
Fine with me.
Raiders.
Fellas. Hey, Raiders. Have you seen Walk the Line? How would you compare it to Walk the Line?
I like Walk the Line better because I like Baz Luhrmann's movies, but they're very fast-paced, really quick editing, lots of scenes. So, like, after you watch a Baz Luhrmann movie, it's a style. You're just completely drained emotionally and just, like exhausted, but like
a Safdie's Brothers movie.
Kind of, yeah, it is basically, except quick, even quicker,
longer,
more scenes. That's the style, though. But I think Walk the Line is slower, obviously, and more controlled in terms of the just focusing.
Yeah, James Mangold's
focus on the performance of Joaquin
director.
and Reese Witherspoon too. But Joaquin is just so sensational in Walk the Line. I think that's a better movie.
I pick Elvis over. I think I like Baz Luhrmann a lot. No one makes movies like him, and he literally, what I like about him is he throws literally every filmmaking technique in that you can think of, he puts into his movies, and he has a really unique way of using CGI to blend scenes together. He really put on a show for a lot of that film, and it ran a little too long, but I think that the filmmaking plus Austin Butler made it a really special movie for me. So I think it's one of the better musical biopics in recent memory.
Wow.
I have Rocket Man as my number one.
Rocket Man's so great.
Yeah,
solid. It's like being trapped in like picture like an Elvis pinball machine. Like you'd see like it's like being trapped in it. It's like being the ball in an Elvis.
What's
pinball
a pinball machine? What is
it? Come on now, Mike.
Some people might be watching this like, what the fuck is a pinball machine? They might. I don't know. Anyways, I get what you're saying. Okay, very cool. I got really nothing to offer. Just been watching a lot of documentary stuff. Still stuck in all that shit in Netflix with the. Let's see. No.
Okay.
No, nothing good.
Nothing good. Did you watch that Warren Jeffs documentary on Netflix? I watched that too. Keep Sweet, about the fundamentalist Christian cult.
No, did not see that.
Yeah, it's a tough watch.
I think I left the last 7 days since we did a show, and I'm thinking, where was I? What was I doing? Did I do anything?
Well, you had a birthday, birthday boy.
Okay, happy birthday!
Happy birthday!
Thanks, guys. You guys are so sweet. Look, you barely know me, and you wish me a happy birthday. That's very kind of you. Thank you so much.
Great day.
I'll tell you what, it was just busy doing stuff you wouldn't want to do. I guarantee you that. I will say that, yeah, I kept watching the rest of that series, the Web of Make-Believe. On Netflix. So I watched a couple of those. It's by Ron Howard and Brian Grazer, produced by them. And so I finished that series. It's all very interesting stuff. I'm into that shit. What can I tell you? I think it's interesting. I finally watched the Malice at the Palace one, which I had not seen, that's part of the Untold series. So Untold on Netflix, the Malice at the Palace, which is about the most bizarre sports incident in the history of sports. It has nothing to do with sports because it was here in Detroit. Between fans and the Indiana Pacers, they meylayed in the stands. This is something apparently only happens
players.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I think I remember footage. Yeah.
This was in 2004. It happened. So we were already in our early 20s, and man, I was like, of all the games I didn't go to, I wish I would have been there. I say that now, but you watch the Malice at the Palace Untold on Netflix, you're like, good God, it was out of control. And they show all the raw footage for the first time, as Eric mentioned this when he talked about it a while back. And it's intense. And the way these guys were treated and how the players became the focus when the fans were just as responsible, if not more responsible for a lot of it. A lot of racism going on there, not a surprise. And unfortunately, some of these guys, they just got stuck with this stigma. And that really bums me out. But it's a really fascinating watch. And then the other one of the Untold, of course, was the Manti Te'o story, which is getting a lot of run on Netflix. And, when that happened, I was just getting into teaching, and I was really busy every day in my own life. But I remember hearing about it. But I was really glad to see this documentary because it's been about 10 years. It was 2012 when the news broke that Manti Te'o had been catfished. He was the biggest football star in college football. His team was one of the best teams. He played at Notre Dame, and the way he describes how it happened, I don't watch a lot of Catfish. I know the show was very popular on MTV once upon a time, and I know how it works, but it's just the fact, some of the things that he missed. You would have to be a very busy person like him to miss some of these things. And really, that's the only way it could happen. You have to be so busy with like a massive career that only 1% of the population or less gets to play in the NFL. So you're so busy that, like, you know what? All right, we've never hung out. I've never seen your face. I've never even like been near your presence whatsoever. It's okay. And I'm sure you have a lot of technical issues. This is 2012. The Wi-Fi was really shitty and the video was terrible. I mean, you watch Contact and then you watch the video in 2012. There's no difference, right? I'm sure it's the same. But we'll get into that later. So anyways, check out Manti Te'o's Untold Story. It's really powerful too, because you got this, trans people now and how much that has changed even in 10 years. You might not realize that, depending how old you are and what period you've grown up in, and the fact that the person was absolutely shit on who did this to Manti Te'o, that person is a trans person. At the time, they didn't know what they wanted, and they did some shitty things, but they also were going through really painful stuff. So it's this analysis of someone who is ostracized by society, but at the same time is doing really cruel shit. And how do you, kind of wrestle with all that? Very fascinating stuff. I'll say that.
Okay.
Interesting.
Yeah. All right. Well, hey, Raiders of the Lost podcast. It is now your control of the board, as we like to say. I like to say it. No one else says it.
Yeah, just you.
No.
Yeah. What have you guys been watching lately? What would you like to recommend? Take it away.
I'll go first.
Go for
I
it.
recently finished The Rehearsal, Nathan Fielder's new show on HBO, and he used to have a show on Comedy Central called Nathan For You. Super funny, very meta, dry comedy. And if you like Nathan For You, if you've never heard of it, I recommend checking out. There's a bunch of clips on YouTube and sketches. And he made the show The Rehearsal on HBO. It just came out. It's 6 episodes. It's the most unique, dry humor I've ever seen in my entire life. I've never seen a show like it before, ever. It's so hard to describe what it is, but he basically helps people rehearse for real life situations. But it's just so meta because he puts himself in the situations. But if you like dry humor, I recommend checking out Nathan For You on Comedy Central, but also The Rehearsal on HBO. It's phenomenal. I recently...
Very polarizing too, right?
Yeah, it's just people don't like the humor a lot of the times, but it just hits my funny bone right in the spot. And then speaking of vampire movies, I recently watched Park Chan-wook's Thirst, South Korean horror film, which I think is my first time seeing it. And I love vampire movies. That's why I gave Day Shift a shot. And I think we've always said, and I think we both agree that Let the Right One In is the best one ever made.
Yes.
The original.
There it is.
Yeah, there is.
But I watched Thirst, and I think it's better. It's one of the most incredible horror movies I've ever seen. It's highly original, a great take on vampires, the way he shows them in his movie, and the way the common lore that we see in the movies, the way he makes it different, his interpretation of them. It's so unique and incredible. And then I also watched for the first time Bong Joon-ho's Memories of a Murder recently, which I've seen a bunch of his movies, same with Park Chan-wook, but I'd never seen those two of their filmography. And that's an incredible movie. Came out in 2003, 2004. So that's a sensational crime, murder, mystery. And aside from that, we watched The Thing recently for the 10th time, and it still is one of the best horror movies of all time. Still incredible. And aside from that, just been watching stuff for the show here and there. How about you? Oh, I had a pretty good week of movie watching. I've been on a William Friedkin marathon.
Ooh.
He's one of my favorite.
He's
one of my favorite American directors. So underrated. And so I watched The Exorcist, then To Live and Die in L.A. and Sorcerer. The Exorcist.
Eric, real quick. Yeah. Eric tried to do that, by the way. We tried to do Live and Die in L.A. on this show a few months back, but
it's not
couldn't find it
anywhere.
anywhere.
Yeah. Oh, I found it.
Did you?
Yeah. We got a site. I got a site.
I found it. I watched it for the first time. It was incredible.
You can't rent it anywhere, and it's no streaming service has it. But it's an amazing action. It's L.A. pulpy. Willem Dafoe is the villain, and then William Peterson plays the alpha badass Secret Service agent. It's just a great 80s noir classic action movie. I had a blast, and it has one of the craziest chase sequences of all time. And Friedkin made The French Connection, but this chase sequence in the freeway it blew my mind because he's such an old school director. He filmed everything. It's no CGI.
I swear to God, I said the same thing on the show. Like we have all our old episodes available on YouTube or any podcast platform. I said the same thing. It was incredible.
It's unbelievable. And then The Exorcist is one of my favorite films. I think it's just one of the best directed movies of all time. And then Sorcerer, I've seen it 3 times now. I watched it for the first time maybe 4 years ago, and then I watched it again last year. And then I just wanted to watch it again and actually inspire my Friedkin marathon because I think it's so special. If anyone doesn't know what it is, it's about 4 criminals who are hiding out in South America. They're trying to buy their way out to get new passports and to start over in different countries, but they're also on the run, so they have to lay low. And then this job comes up for an oil drilling company. They need 4 men to drive 2 heavy-duty trucks holding 3 boxes of liquid nitrogen across 200 miles of jungle.
Amazing.
Yeah. Have you seen? I'm sorry.
The movie's brutal. It's physical. They actually shot it in the jungle. And there's the sequence on the bridge where they have to get the trucks across this tiny bridge. And it's just the filmmaking. I've never seen anything like it. It's like the huge scale filmmaking that they did in like the 50s and 40s in the building giant sets and pulling off the impossible physically. And I think it's a really special movie. It's now in one of my probably top 25 movies right now.
Wow.
Have you seen Wages of Fear, the one it's based on from the 40s?
I haven't, no.
Oh, dude, you gotta. I haven't seen Sorcerer. It's been on my list, but Wages of Fear, I think it's like 54, 50, somewhere in there. It's maybe even the 40s. It is just, it's awesome.
I believe that's the name of the novel.
Yeah.
On your Friedkin marathon, did you get to The Guardian yet? From
not yet. I started with those 3, and then I'm going to do French Connection next.
A nanny takes care of some children, but the nanny is not who she seems. She's a fucking like dyad. She's like a nymph from ancient Greece. It's so fucked up.
I was hoping it was gonna be Robin Williams. Oh well.
And then there's another great Friedkin movie because he's such a fascinating director because he always made weird movies. He always challenged himself, but he made this movie called Cruising with Al Pacino, and it is unbelievable. Yeah. There's nothing like it. I have so much respect for Friedkin he made one of the most successful films in history with The Exorcist. One of the most biggest box offices to this day. And after that, he just kept doing his own thing and kind of just gave the middle finger to Hollywood over and over again. And was like, I'm going to make the movies I want to make, even if people hate them. This is what I want to do. So I have so much respect for him.
Nice.
That's awesome.
Okay.
Good point. Good.
Beautiful.
Good Bill.
Hey, Bill. How you doing out there, Billy?
Old Bill.
And that'll do it. That's your segment of the show, fellas.
Thanks for having us.
It's been a pleasure. Thanks a lot. We'll catch you guys next week. It's been
I thought you were serious for a second. We gotta talk about the movie. I know. I was like, I guess they're gonna talk about Contact by themselves.
I saw that you guys went to the Vengeance premiere. How was that? I heard the screenplay was fucking fantastic.
It was pretty good.
It was funny. For a debut film, I thought it was solid. Because BJ Novak, huge fan of his from The Office and everything. I haven't seen any of his shows that he's done at all, but he's from Massachusetts. He's from Newton. He's actually from near where we grew up. But I respect him, working so hard in Hollywood, then finally making a movie that he's directing, starring, and wrote. So that's a huge accomplishment for a filmmaker to finally achieve. It's a big deal. It was a cool premiere. It's a beautiful theater at the Ace Hotel downtown Los Angeles. We had a great time. It was cool.
Yeah, that's awesome.
God, that's the one he was on Bill Maher last Friday. He was the main interview to start the show. So I learned all about that. And I really want to watch that movie.
It's really funny. It's very it's like very political, but it's still really funny. And it will, I think he's trying to cater to both sides at the same time, which is a tough thing to do. But I think he did a good job objectively pulling that off.
Cool.
Yeah, that's how he described it. It's definitely about like our current state of affairs in our country. So I'm very excited to see that. I'll try to move that up the list. By the way, Matt Wilson says he was there at the Malice in the Palace, and it was insane.
No way.
That was with Ron Artest or Meta World Peace, right? That's
Meta World Peace.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah. Formerly known as Ron Artest, because he got like the brunt of all the media scrutiny. Yeah. He was like the number one guy.
Well, he was.
That's why he changed his name.
Team. Yeah.
Oh, really?
Wow.
Yeah. Because he was so much baggage with it. He's like, I'm just gonna start fresh as Meta World Peace.
You think Will Smith is gonna change his name now?
Right.
That's a good one. Oh dear. All right. Well, yeah. Well, those are two examples of crowd and entertainment colliding with violence. Some more heavier than others, but that's true. It's a good comparison. Now that means that part of the show is over. We're going to move into it. It's time for our main event. Does it hold up? With Raiders of the Lost Podcast, fellas, live here on the Cinema Eye Podcast. Now, Raiders of the Lost Podcast chose this movie, Contact, 1997, directed by the great, or not great, or just the director, Robert Zemeckis, however you choose to define him.
Come on.
Starring Jodie Foster, Tom Skerritt, Matthew McConaughey, John Hurt, a whole list of wonderful people. Big cast, big movie based on the book by Carl Sagan. Right?
That's right.
Yes,
1995.
Okay. I've heard that a million times. I never actually Googled it. So
yeah, he wrote it. He used a lot of his own science research, and Kip Thorne was involved as well. His research.
Ooh,
yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, so you guys chose this movie. Can you tell us why you selected Contact for today's show?
I'm a big fan of this movie. It's always been one of my favorite sci-fi films, and it's extremely underappreciated. I love Zemeckis, and I think this is his best film, even better than Back to the Future, even better than Forrest Gump and Castaway. I think this movie, on a filmmaking level, on a storytelling level, acting, it's really incredible. Movies that are loved nowadays, like Interstellar, it wouldn't exist without this movie. And if you watch this movie, you'll be like, oh, Interstellar. Definitely drew from it. Right. Jodie Foster, also one of the best actors of all time, gives amazing, resounding lead performance. But the cinematography, the Carl Sagan's idea and concept, and then Zemeckis and the filmmaking team delivering. McConaughey in a great early role, showing off both his charm and the talent that he was even displaying back then before he went into the rom-coms. And then now we all know how talented he really is, but this is a great example of that. I think all in all, it's just a wonderful sci-fi film from start to finish.
And it's got great ideas and themes, and it's probably more realistic to what an alien interaction would be like with humans in coming to Earth, rather than them just showing up with a giant spaceship. It's like they would try to make contact first, and it's objectively scientific. They take the first television signal that was ever sent out to the Vega system, and they send it back to us. So it's realistic. It seems authentic rather than aliens just coming to blow us up or something that we see in a lot of movies. And it reminds me of not just Interstellar, but Arrival too. Same kind of thing, where they're not here to kill us. They're here to share information. Or 2001: A Space Odyssey. Are humans ready to take the next step in evolution? Are they ready to join this galactic community at some point? So I love that concept. And Jodie Foster is the best part of this movie. She's so incredible. I mean, it's hard to compare, to choose between her as Sterling and Silence of the Lambs. I mean, Starling or this. And she's incredible in both, but just her inside the machine, it's mind blowing what she's able to do and just project with her eyes, her face, her voice, and everything. She just is one of the greatest actors of all time. It's a fact.
Yeah, have you guys ever seen Nell?
No, I don't think so.
Sorry, Jodie Foster, 1990. Was that Liam Neeson, Jodie Foster?
Yeah.
I haven't seen that one.
No.
I'll write it down if just.
Will do.
I'd be curious to see what you guys, as first-time viewers, had to say about it. But anyways, that's a great base for why you chose this movie. So now we like to go back in time. Travis, can you remember the first time you saw Contact?
I'm 90% sure I caught this one in theaters. But I may not have. I definitely had the VHS copy at home, like the actual, like I bought the VHS, so it was one that I liked enough to do that with. And I did the whole thing where I watched it pretty regularly for a good 5 years or so, and then just shelved it and haven't watched it until last night.
Okay,
what'd you think?
I'll divulge that more as we go on.
We're just getting warmed up. We're just getting warmed up. Eric, what do you got? Eric, take us back to your first viewing of Contact.
Yeah, home video, man. I was a huge Bob Zemeckis fan. For some reason, I didn't catch it in theaters. I'd be curious to see what this was up against on that weekend, because like last week, like everyone was at Jurassic Park and everyone missed an incredible action movie. Action comedy. But I'd be curious. We should look that up. But yeah, I missed it, but I rented it over and over again. I watched this many times in the late 90s. Then I put it on the shelf. It's been a good 20 years.
Harsh Truth likes the philosophical approach to the sci-fi genre.
Oh, for sure. It's definitely there.
Yeah, the science and religion.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, we got so much to talk about there. No doubt about it.
Oh, yeah.
everybody who I saw it on VHS for sure, and I was not into it at all. I thought it was stupid. I was like, oh God. It's like boring.
Man,
to me,
Mike.
it was like boring. I was young, I was 17 and at 16, 17 years old, and sci-fi that was boring as hell and like too real. At the time, I want my Star Wars and I want it to be fun and keep it simple. So I remember like our friend Steve, our dear friend Steve Guile, he loved this movie. He's huge into astronomy and all this stuff.
Carl Sagan, yeah.
Yes, yeah. And so he had this on VHS and always kind of forced me. I was there and he'd be watching and be like, oh God, can we play a video game at least while we watch this so I don't have to have something to do? But I don't know. Did things change? I'll let you know. So I assume, do you guys remember the first time you saw Contact?
I remember
young.
it as a kid, but I remember not really knowing much about it because we have a lot of older brothers, so they would watch a lot of movies when we were kids, especially rentals at Blockbuster. I remember it being on because as I've watched it as an adult, I can remember moments and scenes, but I remember not really understanding what the movie was about or fully grasping the entire plot. Kind of like The Matrix. I guess I feel like I didn't really get into like film and being a film lover until I was like in my like a 12-year-old, 13, early teens, like really getting into great filmmakers and then getting into sci-fi.
He was watching only Tarkovsky at 12.
But like now science fiction is my favorite genre. So that's why I like Contact a lot. And I think just like the aspect of it, it's not very sci-fi until the third act of the film, really, which is where I think it's really fascinating. And it's just really a story about human connections and philosophy of science versus religion. But I feel like the first time I really consumed it and retained it really well was probably my early teens. And Zemeckis is a really impressive director in terms of the blending of CGI and understanding how to use visual effects. And it has, I think, one of the greatest shots of all time, which is young Eleanor running through the hallway to get her father's medicine. And then her running towards the camera is suddenly the reflection of her opening the medicine drawer. And it's just an amazing image. I remember the first time I saw that, pretty like, I would say teens, like late teens. And I was like, I've never seen that before in my life. And things like that makes Zemeckis a really special filmmaker, how he uses visual effects in a way that most other filmmakers don't.
Yeah, that's it exactly, Anthony. You nailed it.
Yeah, that shot to me was always like, when I think of the movie, I think of that shot, the medicine cabinet shot.
Yeah.
Medicine cabinets are a lot of fun, and you can do a lot of things with them. On this film, and like maybe not. Yeah, don't look through other people's medicine cabinets without their permission. Not cool. I will tell you that it is. You just
we put marbles in when me and Steve first moved in our apartment. We put marbles in it, and then somebody I won't mention. We just all of a sudden heard marbles tumbling in our bathroom, and we knew that they had checked out our fucking medicine cabinet. It was a little joke. Yep.
Joke's on you.
Wow. Yeah.
Well, on this show, we always like to guess the IMDb score because that's always a lot of fun. So let's get everybody's guesses. Eric,
oh man, dude, yeah, it's been a hell of a long time. Like,
if anybody knows, you can abstain.
Like you guys
I
said,
looked at it recently.
Yeah, I feel like not a lot of people have seen this in a long time, and I'm afraid that younger crowds are kind of dismissing it because they've seen fucking Interstellar and this the Arrival that's kind of done what it was doing originally. So I think it's probably in the late 6s. I'll say maybe 6-8.
That's the number I had in my head too.
Is
I
it?
think that.
I think it's 7.4.
Oh,
7.4,
okay.
I think. I'm going low. I'm gonna say 7.1, 7.1, 7.2. I'd say it's above 7. I think it's just that well of a made movie. But yeah, I think because it's not rewatched by Gen Z and younger kids, they're not getting that bump in IMDb. Because I mean, Interstellar is great, but Interstellar is like top 15 on the IMDb charts list. Which I adore that movie so much, but does it deserve to be a top 15?
Wow. Well, I would say it's like 6-7. That was kind of my guess too, Travis and Eric. And 7.5 is the answer, folks. 7.
Wow, that's surprising.
A fair amount of votes.
How 273,000. That's a solid.
Over 250 is a solid. But I think that's way too low. I think it should be an 8.5, honestly.
I think sometimes I don't particularly like this about myself, but I think sometimes I underestimate the intelligence of the people of the world, and I'm like, oh, they're just not gonna get it. They're not gonna understand. They're not like me.
You're just like Ellie. You're dismissing 95% of the population. Not cool, dude.
She did not dismiss 95% of the population. She stayed true to her own beliefs. That was it.
Okay.
Stuck
Well,
with
that
your
sounds
gut.
like you're in the spin
Wasn't
zone.
Discounting anyone.
Okay, fair enough.
I would give this movie. I would give it a 10 out of 10 if I was to rate
You
it.
would?
Yeah.
Wow.
Jeez!
I would
Wow,
give it
you're
a 4.
look how eagerly excited you
praise.
are. You love it. You can't even hide it. You love this movie.
I love movies, bro. I love good movies.
We will,
too.
dude. We
This
will
is a
come
good
at you
movie.
with some criticisms. Trust us.
Okay, yeah,
we'll
we'll
handle these criticisms.
Yeah,
That will be
that's
fun.
Anthony's giving it a 10. I'm like 8. I'm like an 8. I'd give it like an 8 out of 10.
You too,
8 out of
James.
10.
Okay.
Yeah.
The
He's
rock.
backtracking.
Welcome back. This is a 2.5-hour film, and on Rotten Tomatoes, it got a 68%. We always like to do the Rotten Tomato scores and see what the critics said. 68 from the critics. That's not great. That's It's still a fresh red tomato, but it's
Critics, man.
critics, man. It's funny. And then 78% though. So the audience liked it 10% more, which is even higher than the IMDb score. So this movie really does ride or die with the fans. As far as critical reviews, here's some of the we like to pepper in some of the critical reviews. Some of our favorites are Bill Goody Koontz, Desson Thompson, Honeycutt too. Yeah, Honeycutt, Goody Koontz. These are real people. We're not making these names up. I swear.
Like candy.
Whoa.
Let's see. Well, how about Mick LaSalle? I'm not finding any of our classics. Mick LaSalle from the San Francisco Chronicle once upon a time said, when it tries to personify the struggle between skepticism and faith in the relationship between Ellie and her theologian boyfriend, it becomes flat and obvious. Yeah, that's a splat. Okay.
I mean,
I mean,
think
he's
there's
never
validity.
a boyfriend. I don't think they.
Yeah, that's true. But I mean, the chemistry between them two. Now I think I understand why perhaps they didn't have the most solid chemistry. But I even as a kid, I'm just like, wow, it's like I believe they're buddies, but I'm not really feeling like romance vibes. And I get older, I'm like, oh well. No,
I'm hearing that.
We got our main man, Desson Thompson.
Yes,
it's always a great. We don't always get Desson, but when we do get him, we're very happy. And this one's lengthy. Wow, for Desson it is.
All right.
While the movie doesn't qualify as an awful waste of space by any means,
Jesus.
good one. It has so many creative black holes, you'll have to weigh the entertainment odds before making this journey.
Wow. Desson coming in hot.
Okay.
I'm glad they
He
didn't
is.
completely waste their time.
Yeah. I mean, he threw a line in for the film, but wasn't a ringing endorsement. Good old Ebes, Roger Ebert, the dearly departed. Zemeckis uses special effects to suggest the climactic events without upstaging them. Is that true?
I would say that's an accurate statement. Not really a review, but okay.
Well, yeah, I love the finale because you're expecting something crazy and extravagant, something you've never seen before, but it ends up being so simple where this superior life form just creates this, and it's really fascinating. Just it's able to go into her memories and create immediately the most calming situation and environment for her and interact with her as the person that she would be most comfortable with. You have the beach, which is the painting she made. And then you have her father, who is the most important person she's ever had in her life. It's just, I love the simplicity and the small scope of the finale because it's not what you were expecting.
Yeah. It goes back to the beach in Pensacola, Florida. Ham radio's in this movie, folks. For those of you that are really younger, ham radio was a thing that my father was hardcore into ham radio. So when I saw this in the movie, it really took me back because we used to do this thing called Field Day every year where you go out to a park in the middle of your city and you set up this huge antenna. It's like 40 feet. And it takes hours. And then like all these people sit there and they're just like, CQ Field Day, CQ Field Day. So when she's doing the CQ, that's how you start it. That was all very accurate. And I would just remember going, oh, this is so cool. We're talking to people in Georgia or we're talking to people in Australia. And that just took me back. Ham radio is long gone now. It's been completely surpassed by the internet. But it was kind of nice to see that because it was a big way that people communicated around the globe once upon a time. And
it was like chat roulette.
Yes, it was it's exactly what it was. Yeah,
except way
just
less,
no
way
visual.
less dudes. Thankfully, no visual stuff.
It was
way
just
more dudes.
superior technology.
They're probably still doing what they're doing on chat roulette. It's just you can only hear them. Why is he breathing heavy?
Man.
Yeah.
Wow.
Okay. So yeah, that was boy. The ending. You talked about the ending. I guess we're kind of there. I'd like to say some things further, but also get some of the takes.
Sure.
Eric, the ending.
Yeah, dude, I remember when I was a kid, I was like, this is what we got here, like CGI beach, like CGI like actors on beach talking. I was disappointed as a kid, but last night, dude, I was loving it. I don't think you could have had a more perfect ending. I'm not just talking about the beach, like the whole conspiracy theory, like urban legend, like is this real? Is this not? I fucking love that so much. But what struck me is for all the people that point the finger at Contact, especially the ending, and say, oh, that's boring, that's all you have. These same people will look at something like 2001, widely considered the greatest science fiction movie of all time, and say there's no imperfections here. And we're talking about literally nothing happens at the end of that. It's just like surmise that this may be some sort of star child, whatever the fuck it is. It's just a dude laying in bed with the baby in a bubble, and they got no problems with that. What they do with this? Come on.
I think that this movie throughout it's very bold. It does things. It's like, we're not really interested in showing, like, this isn't a blockbuster. Sorry if that's how it was marketed, and which it really wasn't. But if people went in thinking it was going to be the aliens blowing up the Capitol building, that didn't come. It wasn't that kind of movie. And there's one point in this movie where I'm watching the movie, I'm like, this is very much made by academics, because this is about hunting for grants. This is about like begging for grants. Like, that is like, wow, dull but realistic.
True entertainment.
Right, and there's just a bunch of stuff like that throughout the movie, so that so that the climax is instead a quiet conversation is not surprising in a way. It's very fitting for the rest of the movie.
And they kind of comment on that too. Like, I love that part when they talk about like the hive mind and what would ants do. Like, in so many movies, the aliens go straight to DC. Like, they would know that's where the fucking world leaders live. Come on,
Hollywood, man. American filmmakers, of course they go to DC. I love the sequence where Ellie's in the vessel and she's traveling through different dimensions.
Incredible.
Because you're with her inside the whole time. We're not like outside getting shots of the ship and showing us that it's real. We're just seeing her perspective going through all these wormholes.
It looks good, right? I think it still looks
great.
good.
Still holds up.
It
It's just like a highway of wormholes. It's really
Screensaver.
fascinating and really interesting. It's like the turtles in Finding Nemo. It's like the same kind of thing. It looked great. But I love how we stay
hilarious.
Anyways, but she's just traveling, but you're with her the whole time. You're inside the ship. Half the time we're not even looking outside what she's seeing. We're looking at her reactions to what she's seeing. And then the beach, it's just all very philosophical, metaphorical. I think that's better than if they went like bombastic CGI fest all over the place, because that's not what the movie's about. The movie's about human connections, really down to it. And it's all about faith versus science in that huge debate of religion versus science, and how they can coexist, like they show at the end of the film, where they're still kind of end up together. And it's okay that they have different philosophies in life, but they're both truth seekers, which is the most important thing to do for these people.
And if God is being shit on a bit in this movie, like in terms of the way they structure the universe, however you define it, I'm not even here to debate that. But my point being is the alien life forms, these extraterrestrials, small steps. This is repeated early on. Small moves, Ellie, small moves. And then at the end, it's like, why can't we go further here? Small moves. We got to start small. So it's almost like what we think of as a supreme being in religious effect is the same as what they were doing, where you don't really understand why. It's just how it's been done for billions of years. Okay, I got a problem with some of that. Does anyone else, did that bother you at all?
Well, the central theme of the movie is, I think, even more than discovery, it's like the importance of faith, which always kind of makes me go, oh God, we're doing this again. But I do like that they take a character who is, she has faith in the aliens' plans and what they have for her, and they kind of it all gets twisted and inverted on her, where she has to have faith, which is cool. It is cool. What it made me think of? It made me think of like how at the end, when she's experienced the whole Pensacola thing and she is trying to convince everybody of this experience. It made me think of people who have near-death experiences and how completely unique, and like that's only from their perspective. And anybody that they tell it to could either be like, "Wow, that's amazing, I buy into it," or they're gonna be like, "Well, you're full of shit. Sorry that you got hit on the head or whatever." But like it's so uniquely personal. So it really made me think of that. I don't know if that, yeah.
Kind of. Well, I think their characters are a lot more similar than you think when you watch the movie. They're both looking to the sky, looking for a higher power or other beings in the sky, whether it's just science or aliens or if it's God.
You know about Joss?
Yeah, Joss and Ellie.
Palmer.
So they're actually very similar despite their major differences in their philosophies on life. And I think it shows that, it's not that different to look for higher life than a higher being that, has a say in the entire universe. I think they're really similar, and they're kind of saying the exact same thing and looking for the same thing if you think about it.
I also think that one of the main themes of the film, especially we learn by the end about the alien life form telling her that the human race isn't ready, is it's basically you could say a metaphor for we can't even think about advancing our species until we come together as one. And I think that's like her connection to her father is a great example of the human connection we can have with one another, but instead we're divided by countries, by politics, by so many other reasons. And I think it's an important value shown throughout the film in a lot of ways, especially with the geopolitical elements, with the government forces and agencies. They're all trying to get in on the project. They're all fighting like who's going to pilot this thing. There's so much going on. And the film is all about the human species needs to unite if we're going to propel ourselves further into the stars. And we can't just launch a bunch of rockets and build a space station. Like if we really want to truly advance ourselves and our beings, we have to come together.
Yeah, I think.
Amazing.
Go ahead, Eric.
Well, I love that that's one of the many central themes in that we're giving a lot. We're not given any finite answers here, because what it does, it allows us to think so much more on our own as viewers than we would if we didn't have characters, even confident characters, saying things like maybe it's nothing but noble gases and carbon compounds out there. There's no real truth. It's this overarching sense of like wonderment and marvel that goes throughout the entire movie that I can appreciate. Like another thing about that ending is the aliens have the foresight, the wherewithal to appear as human. They know it's like dropping a motorcycle off in Victorian times. They know that Ellie will not be able to handle what they are and what's going on. So it shows the compassion of extraterrestrial life to give her something that she can latch on to in order to have perspective. It's just so much stuff you would not think of for an audience of people munching on popcorn and pop.
And they also understand that they can't just say aliens exist and let Ellie go back and say and have evidence, because that would cause, imagine worldwide what that would do. It would cause more division. So they understood that they have to plant this nugget into her mind, and she's going to spend the rest of her life developing technologies and ways of revealing this information slowly. They understood that they can't just have evidence with her, and otherwise it wouldn't work. So in order for it to work, it's one step at a time, small steps for humanity to ever gain the ability to even conceive of moving on from this step. Because ultimately the best way to unite humanity would to make the entire planet realize that they're one force in a huge universe full of other societies that would unite us. Because instead of us being all divided on planet Earth, we'd be all together on planet Earth in a divided galaxy of people and beings.
A question I have is there something stated at some point that I missed that they can't just send another person after Ellie? Is the machine only good for one go?
I believe it was just. I believe because the project was so expensive. Well, it's owned by the tycoon guy, and it's in Japan. So I mean, technically, I guess
they still have the stuff. I mean, it's all still there.
They get blown up by one good.
But they know that she experienced it. They just don't want anyone to know that she experienced it. So the lack of evidence is why they're probably not going to use the machine again, because the video feed of her dropping, it never showed anything happening. And then the government agency, the inner people are going to say they know that it recorded the audio for 18 hours. So it's going to be like probably kept under wraps. And in the novel, I haven't read the novel, but I did a little research on the novel, and there's actually like a third act where she actually uses her experience to develop more information that she learned, especially through pi and other mathematical equations. And she actually proves her case to the world in the novel, but they didn't put that in the film. I think it works better with this ending. I think the ending's great, and I think a lot of people probably hate the ending because they don't get like the full clarification that she was right and they're aliens. But I think that's genius, because We don't know shit about fuck, and the movie admits that. We don't know shit about fuck when it comes to aliens. We don't know shit about fuck when it comes to religion and higher powers. So I think that's why the ending is so great. Is it because it's not lying to us? It's being real to human beings. That's this what we are. We're at in our stage. We're developed, but we're still pretty primitive at the same time.
Yeah. So it's kind of like, why ask for an answer in the movie when we don't know the answer? And
it's refreshing. I talk so much about movie tropes and all that. So many tropes, and it's so lame, and it's all been done, and it just seems to be getting worse. So it's refreshing to see this is a big movie, whether it's a blockbuster or it's not. It's not like a huge spectacle. It is a big budget film with a huge
90 million.
Yeah, huge.
Yeah,
so
that is,
so the fact that Carl Sagan died during production, so he didn't get to see the end result, but obviously he had Zemeckis' ear and was able to use a large amount of his influence. And for those of you who don't know who Carl Sagan was, he definitely was a very well-respected. He had his own show, People knew who he was around the country, so he was able to use that influence. Just like, what's-his-face when he's doing the test run when it explodes. He's putting on a show for the people.
Drumlin.
Drumlin, thank you, Tom Skerritt. But I want to go back to, those are all great points. You guys, this is going great. We're live with Raiders of the Lost podcast here on the Cinema 9 podcast. I want to go to the beginning. We talked about the ending, but the beginning, boy, it is slow. It takes its time. I was like, wow, this is still going. This is still going. Because I remember the intro. Yeah, when we were kids, remember like, oh, dude, you heard a Lagwagon song, which was a punk band in the 90s.
Angry Days.
That used to be that used to be the big claim to fame when I was younger. I remember that. I was like, I remember that. There it is. And then you get all this, you get a lot of historical stuff, but it goes on. It's like, I didn't look at the timer, but it felt like it was like 3 minutes.
2.5 minutes.
It comes out her eye.
5 minutes, isn't it? The opening.
Incredible.
Yeah.
It's from the moment we get to her eye.
it makes you feel so small.
So amazing.
Yeah.
That's the whole point. That's the whole
so
point.
tiny.
It does so much. I mean, it does so much. Which that brings us, I think, to Robert Zemeckis, which you had said, Anthony, that this is like you think it's the best movie that he's done. It's. I mean, I don't know if it's my favorite movie that he's done, but I think it's some of the most impressive direction that he's done. It's not just the medicine cabinet shot. It's like these repeated shots of like, here, I'm going to start from like the moon's eye view and just kind of come in through the window into all the way into like the house and like do a close shot and then like pull back out again. There's just constant and I hadn't noticed a lot of that stuff before, even though I'd seen this many times. Like I noticed the medicine chest shot, of course, but there's a lot of stuff happening. That even the editing is super smooth. There's so many things which is just like it kind of disappears if you're not looking for it, because the movie, the story is first and foremost, which is how it absolutely has to be. I think it takes a really talented director to do the kind of amazing shots that he's doing, but you don't necessarily notice the first 2 or 3 times maybe that you see it, because you're caught up in what he wants you to be paying attention to, because he's not trying to show off. He's not doing cartwheels and backflips here. He's just trying to tell a story and with the most effective way he can, and it's really impressive.
He had complete control of his craft by now,
and he had creative freedom on this movie in Final Cut, which is great. And that opening sequence, it's great because it's getting the audience prepared for what they're about to see, and it puts you in the perspective of how small we are in the universe. And I still think that people don't even understand how big the Earth is, let alone how big our solar system is, let alone how big the universe is, and how impossibly far distances these are. I mean, the Vega system is 26 light years away, and you'd have to travel at light speed for 26 years to get there, which is literally, we'll never be able to do that. But it's he's trying to put you into perspective of how impossibly vast the universe is, which I still, people don't understand that perspective. I think that opening sequence is just really important for everyone to understand that it took 26 years for that broadcast to get there, then get sent back for just as much a long amount of time to get back to Earth. That it's just impossible distances to even think of, and that's why the opening is so important.
And not just that, like it also showcases the fucking incredible sound design that we're going to be treated to, because the whole movie, when you think about it, it's pretty much about sound, or at least senses, internal senses, like even the human heart. I think be a little cheesy, but tactile senses too, man. Like you get these characters like we talked about how the opening is a little bit slow. Like they toss in like the Twister like type fun with like the gang of like wacky guys. You got like that fucking bro dude that's like, hey, local bro. That dude's straight out of Twister. And like Bill Fichtner is like the classic 90s blind guy who's got to be all jittery and like vulnerable. But
Yeah, just like Sneakers. David Strathairn and Sneakers.
Seymour Hoffman played one of those guys in Twister.
Oh, totally. Yeah.
Yeah.
There it is.
Did you guys see in the news in June or July the astrologers published that they have heard this like heartbeat sound coming from space, like exactly what happens in the movie. It's like, okay, that just happened a few weeks ago.
Sound doesn't travel in space, right? So is it it's magnetized or
it's going to be
feeling what's it called, a signal, right? They're using technology to create this of what the space would sound like.
Oh,
you know what I mean?
Well, let's go back to Zemeckis as the director here too. By the way, at one point I want to mention this could be a negative. A lot of news clips in this movie. Tons of news clips. Tons of CNN.
He's a sponsor, actually.
Yeah, and if you remember, we're old enough to remember this. It was a big deal because the Bill Clinton speech was taken from a real speech he gave, and this was a big whoop-de-doo because it was taken out of context to use for the movie. So you get real Bill Clinton, and Zemeckis is coming in his pants because he just did the Forrest Gump stuff where he put Forrest Gump in all these historical situations. So he loved it. So he's like, we got to do that again. So does that bother anybody? I know it doesn't.
I love it. I love it because it adds the reality of making it feel authentic to real life. I mean, when you have an actor playing a president, you never really fully believe it.
Get Donald Sutherland in here. Where's Morgan Freeman? Who cares?
But if you have Bill Clinton on screen, you're like, oh, this is real. This is really happening. I think the real talk show host, like Jay Leno, and doing his opening bits, stuff like that. I love when they do that. For me,
Miss Universe bit, very funny.
Yeah, it works so well. Like in Mission Impossible Fallout, they did that with the Wolf. Yeah, they had Wolf really Blitzer. Wolf in the opening with the guy. So I think it's really effective when you do that.
Okay.
Honestly, some of my favorite stuff is like that. For like the second act to be your favorite is saying a ton because that's usually the trickiest act. It's definitely I love all of the pageantry of the press and the world coming to learn what's going on. And it really makes me think this is probably what I would be seeing on the news in the way they handle it. You talk about the editing, how to compile all of that stuff together fluidly while still keeping the main characters in perspective, all the themes going. That's a huge juggle.
It felt really realistic to what would actually happen. And I love how we're getting the perspectives of the people who you would assume would be involved in these situations, the researchers, the scientists, the government officials, and
theologians.
And so I think that it's not like we don't have like a hero to save the day or like we need a action leading man. It's like these feel like these are the people who would be involved in these situations, handling it, making the decisions. And I love how the government is trying to take control. They're shutting down Ellie and her team over and over again. She's bad. She's fighting to be able to even get a chance to be put into the spacecraft. So I think that all of that seems like it's so realistic to what would really happen with these departments.
That whole bit where they're like driving down the desert to the facility and there's all like just madness everywhere. And clearly they got like every extra they could in New Mexico to come out and just be like, go crazy about aliens. There's that one woman like listening to like a satellite dish and shit.
They're already there.
It's all so funny. But to me, what rings most true about this is to get back to the religious element is that you have multiple depictions of religion or religious people, I should say, throughout this movie. You have Palmer Joss, you have Chad or Rob Lowe's character who's like the Christian Coalition guy blowing in, and you got Jake Busey being like, "Hi, I'm an extremist that kills people because I'm completely out to lunch." Which all of these people would be just wiggling out of the woodwork if this kind of stuff happened. And there's so much that Sagan and everyone is juggling in the telling of this story. And it so easily could have just gone off the rails. Like, this is in so many directions. What is happening? But
could have been Mars Attacks.
right. Could have just completely gone all over the place. But instead it remains tight and focused. They somehow find a way to just like tell this really huge story with all of this outside peripheral shit and still keep it all very human. Again, I think to go back to your guys' the Raiders earlier point about Jodie Foster, she's like the anchor. Obviously, the work that she does in this is so believable.
Yeah, it never feels overwhelming.
It's objectively really well researched, especially when it gets political, because they get the transmission that they found was in the 50 frames per second footage, that every other frame is a signal, and they find out that it was it was a speech that Hitler gave at the 1936 Olympics, which obviously, I feel like if you made this movie today, a lot of people would think that the filmmakers are like glorifying it, but it's objectively what would happen. It was the first thing that was transmitted into space for a television signal. So that's the first thing the aliens, if there were aliens out there, they would receive from us. It's not saying like, oh, this is like a hero of the aliens or anything like that. It's just objective, realistic of what was factual and what would actually probably happen. The first thing they would get is that. So I think it's really smart because it's just unbiased research for the filmmaking. It's authentic.
And they got lucky there too, because when they bring that scene in,
I don't think
that's also when they bring in like the Secretary of Defense and like the.
This is incorrect, by the way. This is incorrect. Sorry.
Contact came out in 1997.
Yeah, it came before 9/11. Sorry.
Yeah, harsh truth. Fact check. Harsh truth.
Oh, he's right. Never mind. I was wrong. I just remember when this movie came out. Laugh out loud. Okay.
It's okay,
Sorry,
pal. We all make mistakes.
We do.
You got to talk Jimmy Woods.
Harsh truth. Yeah. Oh, sorry. Jimmy Woods. Go ahead.
Jim Wood.
He's ready to come in and be an asshole in any movie. Here he is.
He's always ready to be an asshole because that's who he is. He's not acting. He's not acting.
Yeah, that's just who he is. You can tell, yeah.
Yeah, so in a way, James Woods plays James Woods better than anybody ever could. I think
he's very good. He's a great character in this movie. He really is.
Exactly. Oh, he's needed. He's needed.
The line about windsurfing with Pops or whatever.
Windsurfing with Pops.
So dismissive.
Oh, yeah. It's important to have that. A couple of things I want to throw out there. See if you guys had any beef with this. This goes back to the early part. One of you guys from Raiders of the Lost podcast said this earlier. I can't remember who it was, but one of you guys said how we just don't realize how big this universe and this space is. Oh, yeah. People just don't understand the awesome force, right? So why is finding life... Because the movie starts off with like this huge opening, as we discussed, and then we go down to Puerto Rico, and this constant shitting on SETI, S-E-T-I, this extraterrestrial search. And everyone's shitting on it. It's a dead end. Like at this point in society, that's how it is now. Drumlin especially. Yeah, he's hard about, Ellie, you're wasting your time. You're so talented. You graduated high school 2 years early. What are you doing? Why? Why are you wasting your time on this bullshit? Is it really that absurd to try to find any type? Did anyone bother anybody? Because I thought it was like a little over top. Like, wow, we're being a little too intense on like, it would be so critical of people trying to find any type of existence signal of extraterrestrial life forms.
You mean like critical of why they're even doing it?
Yeah, it seems like the movie like went too hard on it, is my point. I thought it was over the top.
I'm not sure. It might be authentic in terms of like budgetary issues with government. Money, man. Because, you know, every decade they need to save money and they're probably cutting these programs. Like, this is pointless. You're just listening for nothing. You're listening at nothing for 4 years straight. Like, where's we can't keep wasting money on this. So that's always just the perspective I've had.
And you need to have, I mean, the conflict and the antagonist, basically the antagonist force of Ellie. And so it could be a little too extreme. I'm not sure reality. I do think that there are so many people who would be like, this is such a waste of millions of dollars of government taxpayer money. But they could have maybe,
as if they don't already waste so much of it.
But it could have been, it could have been dialed a little too far. You need to have conflict for your main character, for their theme and their goal. You need to have an equal opposing force to try and stop that. So it just breeds good storytelling.
Ticking clock too.
Yeah, ticking clock and having obstacles for your antagonist to overcome and get in their way for them to try and see if they can get through that. So it's a matter of storytelling, having an equal negative force against your positive force.
Okay, fine. One other guys. S.E. Haddon is the MacGuffin.
That's right.
In this movie. Big time. He's the MacGuffin who keeps the movie going. Oh, shit. The main one blew up. That's okay. I built another one. Oh, don't worry, Ellie. I'm always here to MacGuffin you to keep you moving forward. I thought the case could at least be made for that. It doesn't really bother me too much, but I did think of it from that perspective, that there was a super rich person who actually like wants to give back. Because in a way, it's like giving back, even though he's very selfish about his motives. It just seemed like...
That's what I liked about him. Besides, not just that it was John Hurt's awesome performance, because he's always good, but I think he's extra good in this. But so much of this movie is like, Drumlin is the Republican, James Woods is the Democrat, because he's NSA. So like there's those factions, and there's different factions of Christianity coming out. There's different factions of scientists coming out. There's just all these different factions throughout the whole movie, and they're all just kind of competing and jostling one against the other, which, to get back to your point from earlier, Anthony, that really people just need to like come together and elevate to the next level. But some people are ready for that and some people aren't. So it's just, I think that it just kind of represents that group, that tribe mentality that drags us all down.
Yeah, I feel like he understands that humanity is not ready, so that's why he made his own backup plan. And I think it's important to have the terrorist attack on the original site because it's proof that we aren't ready. And the only way for us to actually, I mean, you need to have the John Hurt character to make the backup plan to even go. So I think it was important for the story to have the first one be destroyed by humanity, proving once again that we're not ready to make the next step.
And if this happened in real life, that fucking
someone would try.
Elon Musk would be nosing his way into this shit, or Bezos, somebody would be like, either behind the scenes or in front of the cameras. That
there would be a rivalry. There would be multiple
race.
Companies. There would be a space race
from the Cold War, and also the space race that's going on right now. Like all these companies have different interests and are trying to do it first, whereas working together and putting their interests all together. So that's why we beat Russia to the moon, because they couldn't formulate one plan. They had too many dividing heads. So I think that's a great point that you brought up, that it just shows that humans weren't ready.
Yeah.
Thanks, man.
Okay. That's fair.
Or maybe they were because they figured it out. No, and
also, that's true. Larry King's in this movie, part of the whole news coalition of this film. And there's a point there right before we get the initial contact, which great. If we're going to give credit to the direction and all that, that's a great uncut scene of Ellie hauling ass from the moment she hears it out in the field, drives all the way back. And of course she has to drive it. Why is it in movies you always have to drive a classic car? Why?
It's cool, man. It's cool, man.
There's modern convertibles that are really cool at the time. You could have been driving like a brand new, Sebring. There was a Sebring convertible.
Was her dad somehow?
I feel like it's something to do with her dad.
Yeah.
See, you guys are amazing at this. All right, but that's a great shot when she's all the way running up the stairs into the control room. That's very cool. But there's a point right before that happens where they're watching Palmer Joss on Larry King, and he makes this point about how cut off humans are. And more than ever before. And this movie was made in 1997. This is 25 years ago.
Palmer ain't
that blew my mind, because where we are now.
Yeah,
his head would have. He's rolling in his grave. That character,
dead of old age.
The fictional character, he died. I think.
Palmer Joss, rest in power.
In my head canon, Joss died of a car accident 10 years later. I don't know why. Shit happens.
But that struck me hard. Oh wow, God! So 25 years ago, this was already a thought, and now it's that much worse. It was just something that was very powerful.
Well, the television
history. Look at Luddites, right? I mean, there's always been people that have been angry and terrified of technology.
Oh yeah,
but television was a big thing back. Everyone was watching a lot of TV back then. But now, obviously, technology's evolved into places we never ever could have predicted.
Well, it's integrated with human nature and
the integration into human
life. So it's so different and unique now. It's
right, but he says synthesized culture, a synthesized society. So it's that much more synthesized now. It's very relevant.
It's unbelievable how relevant that still is.
We're cyborgs. We're walking around cyborgs.
Yes.
It's fascinating to go back to that era and read people's critiques of television and monoculture and stuff. You're like, oh boy, you guys, you didn't type loud enough.
Wow. I did laugh when the fax came in. It was like, oh wow, fax. Technology.
Emails don't work that way. She's emailing John Hurt's character. That's not how that
movie email. It's always like that. It's got to be all fancy with a graphic that doesn't exist in society. But it does. It is. I kept thinking a lot about, and this is just such a minor detail, but I kept thinking about the video online in the movie because it was so non-existent in 1997. It was there was no streaming of you could barely do a webcam at all back then. So I just thought it was funny that there was hey, we're talking together. Someone's in Australia and we're doing a video conference in 1997. Huge load of shit. It's a minor detail, but it's just so absurd. It's
He's on the
movie
space station
I'm not
doing
actually
it.
sure, but I think maybe the government agencies might have had access to things like that before the public did. Is
That's
my
the only
guess.
way it flies, though. That's
Yeah.
the only way it
Because, I
flies.
mean, the
Because the government's
yeah.
got something we don't know about.
They had email before anyone else. They were using email. For
They had
decades.
drones early too, man.
Yeah.
I feel like half UFO sightings in the 1990s and 2000s.
For me, I
were
never
drones.
even thought to question that because I've always assumed government officials and government agencies have more advanced technology in use than the public does at the time. That's my guess.
Maybe they relied on that. Maybe that's a universal thought. My bad.
Dude, Al Gore invented that in Vietnam. Did you hear about that?
We're getting close to the end here, guys. We want to hit any final thoughts before we make our. We already know how you guys felt. You already tipped your hand really early, but any other points, any other notes that anybody wrote down they want to mention?
Something that Eric brought up was briefly the sound design. I think it's so important in this movie because, like you said, it starts off really slow. You're waiting for something to happen, and when we finally hear Ellie listening to the sound of the broadcast that she's the signal, it's incredible sound effects, and it reminds you of movies like that's a good impression. Of movies like Arrival, the great sound effects and sound design of that, but also War of the Worlds, Spielberg's, the sound design of the aliens in there, incredible. So like, it's just a slow movie getting going with this film, but then when you hear the sound, it's just like, you can't breathe. You're like, holy crap, this is like really happening. You feel like you're Ellie, like, oh my God, am I really hearing this? And it's so unique. You never hear anything like it before.
For me, something we haven't talked about is I find this film extremely emotional, and I connect to it in such a human way and personal way. It does a wonderful job of balancing such a large scale, huge themes, huge ideas, gigantic exploratory space, and so many characters and things going on, but it's still so deeply humanistic, and I cry like a baby every time. And it's Ellie's connection to her father. Everyone can relate to that, no matter what you believe in, no matter who you hate or who you love. Like, that is like ultimately the biggest theme of the film is connection to other human beings, and it gets me every time.
Yeah, seeking is pretty much the theme of the movie. She's seeking the love of her father. She's seeking alien life form, probably even one more than the other. But like, one of the things I love about this movie, and I've talked about it a little bit before, is you really turn it off and you cannot just, put Seinfeld on and go to bed. I sat there for, 10, 15 minutes, just kind of pondering mostly the many conversations I've had with friends about lofty subjects like religion, but I remembered those very respectful conversations, not the arguments, but the type where two adults could just talk respectfully about beliefs. And you rarely see that in a movie nowadays without it just dripping with cynicism. So that was refreshing for me.
Are you referencing like the balcony scene when they're in DC in particular? Yeah, that is just not a scene you're going to get in movies very much anymore, where you have a sympathetic religious character and a sympathetic agnostic character just talking about the existence of God. Like,
right?
They don't do that 100%. Really anymore.
The movie will have an angle for the entire film nowadays,
right?
Yeah.
One or the other.
Yeah, it really is. It's become that way a bit, and that really is a tribute to Contact. I will absolutely agree with that. I watched it right before we went on the air, so I was like so excited to watch. I watched the whole thing, but I was I gotta agree with what you said. I was like in tears upstairs in the kitchen right before we're going on the air. Like when we had our when we had our run in at 6:15, they were there was a mistake that happened. So we met up before the show about an hour prior, and I had to finish the movie. And they're like, okay, finish the movie. So, yeah, I basically came onto the shows before we went live where Ellie and her dad, not the real dad, even though she knows it's not real, and I knew it was not real. And I remembered that because I'd seen the movie before. I was like, wait, she remembers this isn't real, right? And she doesn't when she's on the beach in that pretend world of Pensacola that doesn't exist on Vega. And, boy, it just really was impactful. It wasn't even because of their connection necessarily as like a father-daughter. It was just like the whole movie and the grand scale of the epicness of life. When all the bullshit we like to get into, we all do these shows and we have these discussions about tiny little minutia of, hey, which Batman was better, Bale or Affleck? We do all that, and that's fun, and it's fun to do that stuff. You definitely need to have some fun there, but I just love movies like this where you can really dive into the real meat of what existence is about and whether it's right or wrong or who's right or who's got the right idea. I think I completely agree with that, and it's a very powerful film. It is.
I love the existential nature of it, but I do have to come in with a hot take.
Here we go.
Bring it.
So the meeting of Ellie with her father at the end of the movie has honestly never sat right with me. Never since I was a kid. I'm like, as I'm watching the movie, I'm like, why is he telling her, "Oh, I'm sorry, I was gone, I missed you"? Like, he's going to be like truthful with her, but also like try and deceive her, even though he's also going to tell her the truth. And also, like from her perspective, like I would be terrified. My father is walking up to me, like who's been dead since I was a little. I mean, it would just and be like, "How dare you like repurpose my father's like image for your message?" I don't know. It seems invasive to me. It's always
they wouldn't do it for you though.
Well, the thing is,
I wouldn't get to go.
So the alien, in a way, the alien is telling her what she needs to hear from her father, what she never heard from her father because he passed away. So the alien understood that. It looked into her memories in a split second, got everything.
Exactly.
And
so if Travis went, it would be whatever Travis wanted to hear.
Yeah,
it would be something completely different.
It told her what she needed to hear in order to be able to move on from her father's death.
Yeah, that's the problem. I'm like, this is none of your fucking business, Mr. Alien. Get out of my head. I'm going to grieve in my own way. Fuck off with this shit. Just tell me how the subway works. That's just my 2 cents.
It's about emotion, man.
That's never said that with me. It seems invasive.
That.
Okay. By the way, coming this summer said, "Hey guys, this movie's trailer sold as something completely different than what it was."
I don't remember it.
I'm glad he remembers because I was wondering that. Do you guys?
I don't remember the trailer, but I mean, studios trying to make money first and foremost.
Yeah.
I'm sure they showed the explosion. They must have showed the explosion in the maybe the
Yeah.
Oh yes, yeah. The drop of the ball. I mean, it's like an all third act shit.
Yeah. Movies are businesses. They're not doing it to make cool movies.
They can't show 2 minutes
and
of cool
Jodie
movies.
Foster around satellite dishes.
Profits,
They gotta get
profits
people,
number one.
get people to the theater.
$90 million. They gotta make some of that back.
Also, they invest in it. They're allowed to make a trailer however they want.
Yeah, no,
that's true.
I understand the harsh truth saying in the dialogue of that scene, her father says that they chose that for him to make it easy on her. Again, I understand that. I understand the intention behind it. I don't think it's.
You don't want them messing in your head, is what it is.
Yeah, I don't like it. I don't like that shit. But
It's very clear you don't like it, and that's fine.
why-
And
yeah,
we-
I have a feeling that's not going to happen to you. I'm just.
Yeah, I don't think I need to worry about it happening to me, but if it does, you guys will be the first ones I let know.
got a whole second life brewing, dude. You got a whole second life brewing. You don't even know what it is yet. Okay, wow. So we're about that time here. We make our final ruling. Should we start with the guys who already kind of revealed their hand, or should we?
I'm a 10 out of 10 on this movie. I think it's perfect, and I think it's been extremely inspirational for a lot of the modern great sci-fi directors of the last 20, 25 years.
I'm going 8 out of 10. I think it's a very solid sci-fi film, very underrated.
But there's 2 points off. What is it?
I think sometimes it can get a little slow, the pacing. But I do like patient films. But, I think maybe not everyone loves saving all of the big suspenseful stuff for the third act. But just, I think, a little slow at times. Aside from that, it's just really well executed, though, overall. But 8 out of 10, yeah.
People like you. Awesome cast. Have these guys on again.
Thanks,
Matt.
Thank you, Matt.
That's high praise.
Yeah. I mean, I'll go. It's been a hell of a long time, and I've seen so many science fiction and moreover science fantasy movies in these intervening 20 years. So I forgot what just really good actual science fiction can be. And this is it, dude. To be able to blend science, politics, religion so well, it's just masterful. That's kind of why I miss Bob Zemeckis. He's been making some clunkers lately, but he was such a technical master back in the day. His first act setups were always so fucking immaculate, and he gives us so much. Whoever adapted this screenplay, I think it was Jim Hart that did Hook and Bram Stoker's Dracula. Kudos, man, because you told the story in good 2.5 hours that I could have easily sat for another hour. Carl Sagan once said that science is not only compatible with spirituality, it's a profound source of spirituality. And I love that quote because science is so many things to so many people, and so is spirituality. They are one. It's whatever enlightens you and makes Magellan get on his boat and go out to sea. It's perseverance. It's discovery. This movie reminds me of all those things. It's just awe-inspiring. Loved it. Holds up completely.
Wow, very, very lovely, Eric. Very nice. Travis, you want me to go? You want to go? I don't care.
I'll go ahead. I think you make some great points there, Eric. I mean, I think people forget that people like, Francis Bacon and Sir Isaac Newton, they were like trying to investigate how God works. That it was a spiritual endeavor when science was developed so recently in our human history. So I really, really dig the existential nature of this film. I like that it asks questions. It doesn't pretend to have answers. It is incredibly diverse in its attempts to demonstrate a realistic approach, a believable approach that society, there it is, would have if contact actually was made. I think it's an incredibly bold picture that I don't know that. I mean, I think it took Carl Sagan to get this one made. I don't know that if anyone else's name was attached to it, that this would have gotten off the ground. It certainly wouldn't have gotten $90 million in funding. Again, I'd like to give praise to Jodie Foster. I think that she is really just there's that monologue that she gives when she's like once again turned down and she's being recorded by Haddon, and I love that monologue. She's so impassioned and pissed and sad and angry. Like she's just an underappreciated actor. I think this is an underappreciated movie. I do still feel like the shoehorn romantic bit just doesn't work for me. I feel like that's studio interference. We got to make them fall in love. They can't just be friends. I'm like, oh, fine. But I can find flaw in anything if I look hard enough. This movie absolutely holds up, and it was a real treat to revisit it again. I'm really glad you guys picked it.
Cool.
Yeah, when you guys picked it last week, I was like, oh, okay, all right. Well, man, I just hadn't really dove into this movie in a long time. Turns out I'm a completely different person than I was 20 or so years ago.
Who would have thought?
And I know, right? It's just mind blowing. And
good, you were a dick.
Yeah, I said some things that were very harsh and true. But hey, in the end, harsh truth. Yeah, where's harsh truth at? Look, it's just wonderful. It's just such a treat. And even though it is a lot of like procedural business, government, political, bureaucratic crapola, a lot of red tape in this movie, tons of red tape in this film, but it doesn't matter. I'm just like riveted. I'm locked in, and I want to know more, and I want to talk about this. And Eric, I had the same response as you when the movie was over. I was thinking, because me and my girlfriend Leanne, like, she's very much a Christian. Like, she's a Catholic. She loves Christ, and like, give a fuck about Christ. That's my opinion. That's just my opinion. I'm not saying it's right.
Lightning bolt.
Yeah. How did the lightning bolt get to the basement too? That's amazing. But
Christ, bro.
Yeah, Christ, bro.
Yeah, Christ bolt comes in sideways through the window.
I want a t-shirt that says Christ, bro, right now. That is a great. Does that t-shirt exist? It probably does. Anyways, I talk a lot. I joke about death and stuff a lot. Like, oh, one day we're all gonna die. It's true, and I very much. We just did a Patreon we have. This is not a pub. This is not pushing it. It's just a reminder. We talked about religion. We talked about things we're afraid of, and I always talk about how, yeah, fear is very strong for me. It scares the shit out of me because it's so unknown, and I just don't buy the religious creation, that man-made thing at all. So to me, it seems like a dark, empty spot of hopelessness. But at the same time, Travis's words struck with me recently when he said, you don't know. So the people who are religious, they don't know, and you don't know any more than they do, which I agree with. And it actually helped me out recently. So this movie really hit me in that spot, thinking about, being here all by yourself, the waste of space thing. It seems like a cheesy line, but it's very true. At the very least, it inspires like curiosity and thought. So this movie's outstanding. It's so good. And I'm so grateful that I love it so much now at this age. I don't know if it's the age or just like the person I am
maturity.
now.
When you mature, you understand a movie like this.
I think it's a big deal. I do think that matters. I do. And
so much more appreciation now.
Yeah. So great call, guys. I'm so glad that we were able to do this.
Glad y'all like
Raiders of the Lost podcast dudes. James and Anthony. These guys are awesome. And you guys do 2 episodes a week, right?
4 or 5. Yeah, and then we have like movie news every Sunday, and then we do like
stuff.
Yeah,
we do. So we do main episodes on Monday and Thursday. Those are like hour to 2 hours long, and then we do we're doing like mini reviews of House of the Dragon. Then
Rings of Power.
Rings
when
of
that comes out,
Power.
we'll
So
do
those
that
will come out
weekly.
on Tuesdays and Fridays. Those will come out. So we try to get at least
It's like 4 to 5.
4 to 5 a week usually.
Yeah.
I'm still
Thank
scoring,
you so
man.
much, man.
I'm still scoring on the Game of Thrones ending. It's just so hard for me still.
Hey man,
Don't worry,
it's
man. This is a
okay.
completely different thing. So I think you'll like it. If you like this
It's
show,
cool.
you'll
It's
like
cool.
this. They're doing a good job.
Oh, okay.
Good things.
Very good job.
That's
And
all right.
George R. Martin has a lot of involvement in
It's
it.
just TV. It's just TV.
It's just TV. It's the golden age, bro. That's what I heard. It's usurped movies. Movies are toast. It's TV now. But okay, that's cool. I'll look into that as well. And also, you guys are on TikTok, and TikTok presence is strong. So make sure you guys, if you're on there, they're everywhere.
Everywhere you can search for us, we're
Raiders
there.
of the Lost Podcast. Raiders of the Lost Podcast. Anthony and James. This has been fun. Whose turn is it next week?
Yours.
I think it's yours because we skipped.
Oh
it.
shit. Okay. Well, every week, guys, we choose a movie, right? So let me go to the list here.
Oh, here's where he vamps for a minute and talks out loud when he looks through his list. Society.
Yeah. So
Society, man.
Death.
Corporations, man.
I got so many lists of movies that are getting confused now, like favorite movies, ideas, movies I need to see, and they're all kind of melding together. That's not good. So let's. I've been wanting to do this movie. I know exactly what I want to do. I've been wanting to do it, but Eric wasn't here one time when I really wanted to do it, so I kind of forgot about it for a minute. But now that we're back to it, I think it's worth looking at because I don't think it's clear cut. But we'll find out officially. I want to go back to 2014, a little bit more recent, not as far back. I want to do Whiplash. I want to do Whiplash.
Great movie.
Which
Yeah,
I don't know if it
no
is.
question about it. Masterpiece. 10 out of 10.
I'm not so. Okay, well, that's one opinion.
I feel strongly about how I feel about this movie going in. We'll see if it changes on this viewing.
Mhm.
Oh, okay. Well, I think there's at least some stuff to mine here. I don't think it's as clear cut, but we'll find out. That's why we do the show. So, yeah, let's do Whiplash.
Awesome. Exciting.
Great pick. Great choice.
Hey, thanks, guys.
Yeah,
hey,
Raiders.
great gift, Dad.
I'm Jose Canseco.
Proud of you. I'm proud of you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Raiders. You guys were, it's like you're old friends now. We really appreciate it.
Thanks for
Thanks,
having us.
guys. I
fellas.
appreciate it.
That was a
It
good
was a lot
time.
of fun.
Yeah, this was great. So, thanks so much, everyone. Make sure you follow them in all the standard possible situations where you follow people and connect with them. For Travis, Michael, Eric, thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.
Oh, Eric just left.
Wow, he